it does feel kind of weird to say that, there are certain things in my life that have really helped me through difficult moments. And I think usually you hear people talk about like, oh, like this movie meant a lot to me, or this album did a lot for me. Well, for me, I've had certain games that like have helped me process things. It's like this kind of like, I guess, like final nail in the coffin, whatever you want to call it. It was just, this game was a thing that I needed at the time to help me get through something. So I'd like to talk about some games that specifically have helped me get through the topic of the video title, which is to say some of the toughest points like of my life have involved people, in some cases even pets, moving on from this life onto the next. And, yes, I did have an amazing support system, and I did a lot of work, just like mentally and physically, to be able to get me past these moments. But there are some games that I wanted to talk about that just have personally tremendously helped me in the way that I just described pretty much. But before I get started, I wanted to do my best to not get too like spoiler heavy about these games, because I would like you to just like, not that they're all like hidden gems or something, but I'd like for you to experience it yourself. Basically, like I'm gonna navigate the video with that in mind, but just know that even though I want you to try these games out blindly, like, I will have to talk a little bit about the game, which involves certain like story beats and stuff like that, just so I could help explain how they helped me. But the first game that I wanted to talk about, and it's kind of a heavy hitter, it's a little bit lesser known game. I wanted to talk about a game called Hollow Knight. So this is actually a game that the very first time that I picked this up was right after I had actually gallbladder surgery. I was just like fat, depressed. I was essentially forced to be bedridden because it's a pretty simple surgery. But I just had like a lot of incisions made into me, and I had like a little bit of like, I don't know what they call it. It's like, I guess like those like drainage tubes or whatever coming out of me. But just know that once I was done with the surgery, it meant that it just hurt to do anything. Like I couldn't really move around or anything. You can only watch so many movies before eventually it's kind of like, all right, well, what else can I do? Now, it's kind of funny because at the time, my pops was actually pretty sick. Like, we didn't know to, what extent quite yet that he was sick. But I remember thinking at the time, just like, very selfishly, honestly, I just remember thinking like, like I'm happy to know that you're following up on me, and you're always checking in, and you're always making sure that I'm doing okay, But honestly, at the back of my head, like, yes, I promise you I have what I need to recover, but I just had this anxiety that I knew that something was wrong with him at the time. I think around this time I might have gone as far as like the Queen's Garden. I think I got stuck on like the first Hornet fight. That's how far I got into Hollow Knight before I took a little bit of a pause on it. But that's mostly because I had recovered from surgery around that point, and it was around this time, which I think will give you a little bit of context for the rest of this video, maybe like. And this is only like about 2 to 3 months afterwards, my old man passed away from cirrhosis to the liver. So it turns out what was wrong with him, what, I was like concerned about that he was hiding from us, was it turns out his addiction to alcohol had gotten pretty serious to the point where, when I finally got some answers, it was only because we went to a doctor's appointment for him together. And he essentially was like we gotta speedrun this guy to the emergency room to get everything analyzed, So after like the initial wave of like doctor's visits and blood work and stuff like that for my old man, it turns out his biggest hope was basically just to wait for a kidney donor and just like hope that this condition wouldn't deteriorate and his kidney would just survive for a little bit. But it was around this time you could also start to see just like mentally he wasn't like all that there anymore. Like his just like thinking facilities or whatever were kind of degrading. I mean, my dad was always like a witty guy. He was very just like always cheery and full of life, even when he was tired and stuff after work. But by this point, between me and my mom, when like we were the ones typically taking care of him, because whenever he was home now, like he had deteriorated enough mentally that he needed just help with certain things like medication and stuff like that. I don't quite remember the timeline for when he was like considered to be put into hospice, but I do know that it was around this time that I personally, I guess, to just avoid like really like soaking in the reality of the situation and just like thinking about what was going on in my life. I was already just like really just heavy into my vices. Sometimes it's just smoking a lot of weed or just drinking, you know, from not a healthy place, a place of pain. But probably one of like the maybe I guess healthier escapes or whatever was playing a lot of video games. And it turns out that like the first thing that I came to at that time was just like, didn't I play? Oh yeah, that's right. Like, let's go finish up Hollow Knight while we're at it, you know? So there you go. After recovering from surgery, I went straight into taking care of my old man, bring back the Hollow Knight. And I think in order to explain it for some people that maybe may not be as familiar with like, I guess gaming, it's a game that takes place in a world that's comprised entirely of like little insects and critters, like everything's like tiny. Your little guy is small and you spend your time exploring like this great kingdom, this like environment that just doesn't exist anymore. It's just like zombie bugs and abandoned buildings, you know, and everything just tries to mess you up as soon as you step into its territory. But this world, I guess just the game really, Hollow Knight, is called what is known as like a Metroidvania, which it's essentially a type of game. Usually these games allow you to explore pretty much the whole world, like from the get-go. Sometimes there's usually like an introductory like area or an introduction level. But once you're out of that, honestly, if you're creative enough, usually like there's like natural barriers that stop you from exploring further. Like they'll be like, oh, you don't have this ability yet, so you can't, you know, go down this route, or you don't know the tips and trips, tips and ways to like, I guess, break the game. You know, you're too new at it, so that if you're like in the know or whatever, you probably could get to any part of the map you want to from the very beginning. But in a Metroidvania, how it typically goes, I guess, or whatever, is you start off very small. Like your ability to do stuff, whether it's through your own skills or like the literal abilities you have unlocked in your arsenal, it starts off as like, okay, like you're just a little guy pretty much. This is kind of like the first reason why I would want to recommend this to someone that was going through something that I would, because there's a very just satisfying gameplay loop of like, you start off very, very simple. And as you progress through the game, you get stronger, you get more skilled at the controls, right? You start to master the controls, and you also start to unlock abilities, and you literally see your little character guy just get more powerful. So again, like I said earlier, Hollow Knight takes place in a world that used to be this big, like humongous kingdom. But I guess without giving away too much of the story, it eventually just breaks down because of not only this disease that ravages the kingdom, but just like internal politics, and it essentially gets abandoned, and the world that you're exploring is, after all of this, pretty much went down already. So I guess you could be thinking like, well, why would you want to recommend something that's like this, I guess, bleak if you're grieving, you know? Well, I think for me, that it's just this game meant a lot to me at the time because, again, because you start off so powerless, you're this little tiny guy in this big, scary world. I think that drives you as the player. Like, if you want to figure out more about what happened to this place, more about the story that it's trying to tell you, and again, just you want the satisfaction of seeing your little guy get stronger, you're going to have to really immerse yourself into the world. And I think it's that part of it that's like the main draw. Something like when you're faced with something that's just very bleak, just very dark and depressing on the outside, something that seems like, you know, like kind of like, what's the point? Almost like what's the point in dealing with this? What's the point in progressing, you know? But persevering through that and always trying to figure out the solution, always trying to figure out a way to get stronger and get creative at dealing with the things that are stopping your progress is, I think, just part of the formula which makes not only Hollow Knight, but Metroidvanias in general such a satisfying game to play through. I think the other part I wanted to talk about is Hollow Knight's very infamously so. It's just a hard-ass game. So like in theory, I guess if you wanted to like explore the whole map and we just emptied out all the obstacles and enemies, I guess you could explore it in like 30 minutes, the entire map. But it's obviously not the case. It's humongous and it's chock full of scary things and big ass difficult enemies to face. So if like in order to get stronger, like the more you head away from the initial area of the game where you start at, you start encountering these situations where it's like you have to wait to get a specific ability to progress to the next area. Or if you want to get up here, like you got to learn a specific trick. And sometimes that could be as like skillful as like you don't just quite know the controls quite yet. Like someone who's played through this game could probably figure out like the little cheat to get into this area early. But regardless, you know, you still have to like practice and get good, whether it's get good enough at the controls or good enough at overcoming the obstacles to get more abilities. I think to me it reflected at the time that like, you know, while I was taking care of my pops, at the time I had a bit of a related feeling where like I didn't know what I wanted to do with like my situation. Like, you know, again, I know logically like I had people supporting me and people to turn to, but I think ultimately like I was the one that was making decisions. I was the one in charge of, I guess, my father's health, you know, because at the time he obviously mentally was not all that there. And, you know, obviously it's, you know, my mom's his wife, so she was also involved in that. But I think his care, like how things were going to play out, was a burden that also fell onto my shoulders. And so I also felt like I was just in this very like immovable state in my life. Like up until that point, I had this unwavering confidence in like what I wanted and what I wanted to do. And then all of a sudden, like I was like just faced with all these like heavy realities, and just like the brightness that was lighting the way or whatever had become just complete pitch darkness. Ooh, was that good? So I guess what I'm saying is that like the game began to reflect the challenges that I was facing in like real life. You know, here's an example. Like I hated like dealing with doctor's appointments and the like bureaucracy and all the nonsense or whatever that came with that. But, you know, I had to put on my big boy pants and just, I thought to myself, like, it's got to get done, you know? Like, it reminded me of being stuck, like, there's a good example, like, there's this vampire guy, when you get to, like, the main city in Hollow Knight, you start to realize, like, oh, shoot, like, here's what happened to the world. And one of the most difficult bosses is in, like, the main abandoned city of the game. And it literally timed out with, like, I remember being stuck for days on this one boss, and I was like, I want to progress and I want to learn more about this world, you know? And this used to be like a thriving kingdom again, but, you know, as much as I did say that everything kind of got zombie mode or whatever, I do really think that, a little bit more of mini spoilers, is that it just got out of hand. You know, the king did try his best to find a solution for him and his people. And there was a little bit of, you know, selfish reasons with the nobility involved, which is a little bit of story info you get from the vampire boss. But it ultimately was just someone that it just got out of his control, and he was not, you know, able to make the decisions correctly. And the same way that I'm sure the king of Hollow Knight, the world's called Hallownest. The king of Hallownest tried his best. I also was like, I have to come to the terms that I'm not in control of everything, you know, like I'm also just really like, despite being faced with like just all these grim situations and, you know, having to deal with this reality that I was now in, I had to come to terms with that I'm not in control of everything. And sometimes doing the best with what I have at the time is really the best solution that I could do, you know, and just expecting the best outcomes. So even when faced with this kind of stuff, even when faced with death, I think that's really the best that you can do. Just you do the best with what you know at the time. But anyways, long story short, unfortunately, my dad did not find a donor, in time. And so at the very end of it, his body just essentially I guess, shut down, for lack of a better term. It was around this time, actually, that, funnily enough, I had gotten to the final boss, the Hollow Knight himself, and I actually never beat the game. I never got to progress to what the ending actually was. I'd like to personally come back, I think, to this game one day, and then just experience everything all over again, and really soak it in before I move on to Silk Song, because I really would love to play that. But what I can tell you is very much I guess that powerful feeling I got at the time of you're in this what it feels like an impossible situation in a very just bleak, dark reality. And it seems like you're almost unfairly burdened in this world with what you're dealing with. But even when you're in that situation, there's always a way to get stronger. There's always a way up out of that hole, and there's always a way to improve things. And sometimes it does require some clever thinking, or it requires you to get some new skills or talents or abilities or whatever. Or even sometimes you just gotta grind it out. You grind it out to make sure that progress is still happening. And I think Hollow Knight, Metroidvanias in general, but again, this is just what really shook me at the time, is that it's just a showcase of the resilience of just people, and that you could see a little playable character in front of you, learning more about the world, dealing with obstacles, getting stronger, and then again, doing the best with the resources that they have at the time. I definitely got to go back to it, and for my pops, go beat the Hollow Knight himself and finally get at least one of the several endings of that game. But I guess while we're keeping the story going, hardships happen all at once typically. Around the time that my pops moved on, I want to say within the same year, honestly, my childhood dog also was like, you know what, bro, I think it's time, I'm going to yeet out of here. So I was it's he was basically yeah, okay, I see that you're going through the grieving process. It seems like everything's in a better state now. It seems like you're okay. You're doing all right. Cool. I'm going to check out now. It was around this point that I was playing another game now, in this new reality of mine's, navigating loss and everything. This new game called Spiritfarer. You take control of this character named Stella. And so her job essentially is to sail around the world in her little ship, not around the world, in the world of the afterlife, actually. And your job is to guide spirits so that they're able to finally move on properly to the afterlife and rest for eternity. So gameplay-wise, I think this game's pretty genius, because the way they get you invested is that they really let you personalize every aspect of your ship. And when you you're in a ship, so you're able to actually sail around pretty much almost everywhere you see. You go around from island to island, and you collect things for your ship. And it's literally think Minecraft status. You're able to just build rooms and kind of cookie cutter things all over it in any way you please. There's not really game overs, no traditional health that can deplete, or boss battles or anything like that. I think the gameplay instead, or the loop or whatever, comes in the form of how the story plays out, the spirits that you pick up on these different islands, and making sure that they're all happy when they're on your ship. Again, you get invested because you can cookie cutter the ship however you want. So you have to make sure that all the spirits that are joining you, they're all getting along together. And then they'll usually have requests favorite foods. Do they enjoy being hugged? Do they need to maybe be not placed next to this other spirit that doesn't quite, vibe with it? I think the genius comes in the form of the spirits that you do pick up. They're based off of real life people that the game developers had in their own lives. So these characters, these spirits, They're based off of friends, brothers, sisters, aunts, uncles, families, pets. Their actual like stories and their backgrounds take like inspiration from real life counterparts. So this game was sold to me at the time. Like people on the internet were just saying that it really helped them process times in their own life, like where they found themselves grieving also. And so between personalizing your little ship and getting to know these characters that, again, they come off like real people because that's who they're based off of, you got to make sure that just everything is gelling, you know, like all the passengers are getting along and you get to know them in the same way almost that you would get to know someone in real life. Here's an example, like this could be like a character, one of the spirits is based off of someone's grandma who, you know, may prefer comforts like to someone who's older. Maybe they might not like a noisy roommate next door, so you can't place them next to a noisy person. They may not be being woken up, you know, past a certain hour, like their bedtime's a lot earlier. They may like certain foods, etc. I think someone who plays this game will be able to find at least one spirit who they like, okay, like this reminds me of someone, and it resonates with like a character that they have in their own life. Mini spoiler warning comes in for you. I'm going to talk about one of the first, I think it might be the first, honestly, passenger that you get in this game. There's a little frog guy called Atul, or Atul, I don't know. I don't know how to pronounce it. But from what I've read is that this guy is based off of one of the developer's uncles. So I know I'm here like, grieving my dad and obviously to the recent loss of my childhood dog as well. So this character Atul, this frog, is not like a one-for-one comparison to how my dad was or anything like that. But kind of like my dad, he was like, the character is also like, he's just always very fun. He's always laughing, joking around, loves food, loves to eat. And he's just one of the sweeter spirits that you get in this game. He's easy to keep happy too. Like I think gameplay-wise that makes sense because he's like the first character you get. So it would make sense that they make the first spirit you get on board be like not too picky, very easy to please. But story-wise, this kind of gives you a sense of like, okay, this guy really loves you. You know, he wants to make sure that everyone's happy. He's not too picky with his own demands. Usually in this game, when a spirit is like ready to move on, it's because you've hit the point of like, you've helped them enough that they think that they're ready. Like, oh, I think I've made peace with everything that I wanted to do. Like, can you take me to move on? And then you take them to this place called the Spirit Gate. Finally, at the Spirit Gate, you get like a little cutscene where they like kind of like float off into the afterlife and they're finally put to rest. So out of all the characters and stuff that you get, the very first one that you get, Atul, it's like hard to find stuff to dislike about this guy because again, he's just so easy to like. He's fun to interact with. He really is like fun uncle energy. And so when you progress his story, his requests and stuff to help him get closer to moving on to the afterlife, you never actually get like the whole, like, I think I've done everything I needed to do and I think I'm ready to move on. You don't get the cutscene where you take him to the gate. What happens with the tool is that as you progress his character and bonus points, he kind of has moments of like, hey, can you hurry up with my requests that I'm asking of you? If you choose not to like progress his story, I'll actually like kind of like get a little bit sad about it. But once he's ready and you've done his portion and you've helped him accomplish what he wanted to do before he moves on, you never get to take him to the Spirit Gate. He just vanishes overnight, essentially. And whenever you drop someone off at the Spirit Gate, they'll usually leave behind a little memento. So your cool frog uncle, Atul, you never get the Spirit Gate cutscene. Instead, you just get his little memento on your ship and he's just gone. And for whatever reason, you know, like this game had been such a source of comfort. And I think even like a healthy way to look at the idea of like, you know, like I couldn't articulate it at the time. I got really sad. I remember crying at the time. And I even looked it up. Like, I was like, is this a glitch? Like, does he ever come back? But no, sure enough, I found other people who also were talking about it and were very sad that their cool frog uncle suddenly vanished overnight without saying goodbye, which was intended to simulate the real feeling of sometimes we don't get to say goodbye. You know, sometimes it just stuff can happen so fast in real life that the people that we love can just be gone the next day, you know. If you like to look a little bit more into it, it just does get a little bit darker. His real life counterpart that he's based off of is again one of the game developers like uncles. And as far as I know, the real life counterpart disappeared not from natural causes or anything like that, but of their own choosing. So I think even more so, it did remind me that some people can have this like fun, warm exterior that they give off to the world, similar to my pops, but deep down, they can just be in extreme pain. And this is something that they never really get a full like fix. You know, they never quite figure it out. And it doesn't stop them from being these people that we look up to and cherish. But I think at this point, my journey through grief and processing loss was very full of like, well, what if I had done this? And, you know, it was very focused on like how fast it had happened and just like pretty much only just negative aspects of the loss, you know, like it's what I was focusing on. And I think this character showed me that, yes, you know, when it comes to people that have passed on, there's usually a lot of like ugliness at the end and sad moments. So I was in the final few months with my pops. But moving forward, choosing to remember him by who he was, which was that warm, like loving father that brightened up every room that he was in, is a choice that I get to make in keeping his memory alive. And that sometimes you do just have to make your peace with, like, people can just disappear fast like that. Because again, my dog had also decided it was time for him to go, even though like I was just starting like to barely navigate this like world like without my dad. But it did remind me of like, okay, I'm gonna continue though to meet other people. I'm gonna continue like one day having to support my own future family. And I'm gonna continue still having to love the people that I currently have in my life. And I'm okay, because I can use this loss as not only a way to improve myself, but I think also help other people, like, you know, live up to the same example that I admired in my own father. Like, I also think I would also love to give the same loyalty and love that my dog gave me. So I think out of all the games in this list, Spiritfarer is definitely the top contender for absolutely play this as blindly as you can, for sure. So that way you could see like what it does for you, you know, when it comes to navigating like loss and death and certain words that begin with S that I can't say on YouTube. But it just left a huge impression on me because I think a lot of media up until that point that I had experienced, like when they dealt with these type of topics, they did so in like a sad way, which I think is good because you get to experience other people's pains and stuff like that. You know, we all go through these things. And there's a little bit of unity in that. But I think it also talks about like what you do to move forward and to help others do the same, and that you have agency in that. And there's mostly like, it gains that, I think, from being a game, you know, because you are like in control of the character, the main character, Stella, and like your uncle, he's just one of the many passengers in this game. It's like, this hopefully convinces you to check it out, because I think like out of all the passenger stories that affected me the most, because there was definitely other passengers on the ship in Spiritfarer that also did things for me, but I think this is the one that stuck out the most to me in terms of like helping me find healthier ways to navigate this world without my dad, and find like, I guess, positive ways to look at it and just really accept loss in a healthy way and move forward. So that moves me on to the last game I wanted to talk about. It's funny, I was like considering not including it, but I guess, you know, a part of grieving is like also what comes afterwards, I suppose, like, well, okay, like now that you're done grieving, what's next? So I think life is good enough now that, like, when you lose someone, it isn't like how it was before. It was just like, well, one of my 17 children have died. That's a shame. I hope one of my 16 remaining kids can help me finish this cabin. Otherwise, we will starve. I don't have time to think about loss. But no, we have, like, I guess the blessing. But no, we have the blessing. I guess we live in today's world where we have the time, the ability, the energy to not only process what happens to us and acknowledge it, but we also just like have the unfortunate, like sometimes it can cause us to like freeze up, we get too stuck in that pit of despair. And when you freeze up, it's like what do I do, because sometimes when you lose someone, it's like, okay, I've lost a supportive presence, or I've lost a voice of guidance, or I've lost someone that was there for my toughest times, and now enough has changed with them gone, or like you just have new responsibilities or challenges that you weren't expecting, so you get stuck because it feels like stuff's just not in your control at the moment. So that's why I wanted to talk about a game called Stardew Valley, which I think is the most famous game out of all this whole list. Which, I'll be honest, the first time I played this game actually was not when all of this was going down, all of this drama. When I first played this, I was working a factory job that I hated. I had no concrete plans about the future. I was always drinking, which is funny because this is around the time my pops was actually first deteriorating. He had lost his job. He was deteriorating in health, which I guess came with other challenges that I hadn't mentioned before, just like financial challenges at home, communication challenges between me and him. Like, it's funny. I thought I was offsetting, because I knew he drank a lot. I thought I was offsetting all the drinking that I was doing by exercising a ton, which I think did help offset some of the negativity. But again, I didn't know what the heck I wanted to do with my life, really, at the time. But without fail, I would come home after work and sit down with my next door neighbor. We'd set up a bunch of za and just get posted outside of his front yard with like a little mini TV, laptop with Stardew Valley on it, and a 24-pack of Coors. And I think for both of us at the time, it did teach us the lesson that it's like, okay, like we're not just gonna do this forever, like let's actually build something. In Stardew Valley, you're set up to escape like a stressful job. You don't like where you're currently at, your character. Not all of us have a grandfather that just donates a free farm to us. But when you want a little bit more like peace, tranquility, you want to get closer to the life that you truly want to live, playing this game, I think, really helped me figure that out. But when I picked it up again later on by myself, this was probably, again, like timeline-wise, this was already after my dog had passed away. And it's a triple whammy. This is like around the time that the entire world shut down for a little bit. So, the first round, it did give me like okay, cool, like let's stack paper and let's work hard, which would, like, I guess work hard in the sense of what I thought at the time was like working hard, stacking paper. But now I was here like, okay, now everything's closed. We're all dealing with the pandemic. What do I do? So for this point in my grieving journey, I think I was already entering kind of like acceptance of the people that I had lost. Now I was being forced to think about my own life. Like, what was actually important about my day-to-day? What did I actually want to do? Who did I want to become? In Stardew Valley, it's like, if you're not happy with how things currently are right now, like you have the ability to plant some seeds. They're going to take some time to grow, but what do you actually want to plant? What do you want to nurture and water? But I think it also showed me too that, like, there's multiple paths in this life too. And sometimes you have to play different roles. So whether you want to be a farmer, a fisher, an explorer, an adventurer, whether you want to get married and have children or do none of those things or do it solo in your own way, I think what I gained most from coming back to this game at this acceptance stage of my journey of loss was you have agency to change your life. You don't have to be like a cog in any system that you don't want to participate in, But it did again get me thinking like, okay, well, you can't mindlessly just try to work and focus only on work, trying to get to the end of the day. Like, what seeds do you actually want to plant? Because some of these things are going to take time, a year. Where do you want to be 5 years from now, 10 years from now? There's more to this life again than working every day. So if you really hate your day to day and you're dealing with like overcoming loss, I think this game will absolutely help you to refocus. Like, it came into my life, I think, at the right time, like that just more was possible. And I certainly think that even the story behind like the actual like developer of this game is absolutely a big part of that mindset change. Because this is like a passion project. I'm sure you've heard it on every Wikipedia of which is one dude who made all the music, coded everything, did all of the artwork. I'm sure everyone knows by this point. But it does show that if you're willing to make some sacrifices, if you're willing to have a little bit of faith, that you will eventually get everything that you've dreamed of, everything that you deserve. It does lead to a life that like you think is worth living. But you do have to critically start thinking about what seeds are you sowing in your own brain today, and like how you're actually going to develop that garden to change your mindset and really start to work towards who you actually want to be. So yeah, I think I'll leave it at that. I'm hoping that the timeline and stuff for all these stories it flowed pretty okay and it was pretty easy to follow. I will say again, overall, what I took away from these games is just like, when people pass, I don't remember them for their worst moments. I remember them for their best moments. And I think of them always at like, not for their biggest moments of suffering, but like the inspirations and positive figures that they were in my life. And also too, I think just like they led to me thinking about like the impact that I'm going to leave on this earth one day for my loved ones, like for people that are still here. I'd love to leave a legacy of just abundance, of positivity, really just a legacy of love, I think is what I'd love to leave, which does require, resources, and it does require sacrifice. But even though grief is one of the most difficult things for anyone to deal with, I know that I'm not alone in this journey. It does feel weird to say, like, it's again, it's like a good movie or an album. It's like a oh, that turned off. But it's like a piece of like, I don't know how to say it, but a movie or an album that changes your life, it almost has like this romantic feeling to you. So I know how it must seem like me talking about these games, like they changed my life, bro. They helped me overcome some sad moments, but they really have. And these are the games that first come to mind that like, yes, there was a lot of work I did myself. And yes, my support system and my loved ones helped me out tremendously. But I think that these games were also just really part of that process in processing something that was like incredibly difficult for me. And it helped me look back on this whole journey as like an experience that was overall like good. It taught me a lot about how to deal with difficult things, about who I wanted to be. And again, it just taught me about just like, I guess, forgiving myself in a sense. I just did the best with what I knew at the time. And here's what I learned. And here's how I'm going to try to help other people also process their difficult moments in their journeys. And that's it. So hopefully that helped you out. I know that these games certainly did. And I think if there's any takeaway overall from this video for me is that like, I went through some difficult stuff. This is what helped me process that. And that I hope that maybe you check these games out too. And if you're going through something, maybe not even loss, maybe not even grieving someone, just something difficult, that maybe they help you out or they inspire you to help someone else out. But overall, my love for these games is just like something that I hope to spread to you also. That these games have these powerful moments that it may not seem like it, especially for people that aren't as familiar with gaming maybe, but that they're certainly capable of changing us as people. So you're very welcome to subscribe to the channel. We'll be talking more stories and more gaming stuff because I really love all this. And again, I hope to help people at the very least check out some cool games. But I will check you guys out in the next video. Let me know what you think. Let me know if any of these games also did something for you and help you get through something difficult. Or just maybe your recommendations for games that I didn't include on here that, you know, maybe helped you out through a tough time or could help someone else out through whatever situation that you went through. Because I'm sure you went through stuff that I didn't have to go through, but you're all the more stronger for it. But it's nighttime now, so I will catch you guys in the next video before my car light turns off again. See you.